people have to live in unity.
We are still in transition.
Civil society has been decimated.
Of course, we rely on media.
And I think the government has not done enough.
The international community has failed to respond.
No place in the world is perfect.
Hello viewers, I'm your host Shivangi Mishra with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with India's interim budget for 2024-25, which was announced by the country's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on January 1st. The interim budget was focused on youth and women empowerment while maintaining fiscal consolidation and continuing capex. Let's have a look at the top takeaways from the budget.
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented interim budget on February 1. While claiming that the government had brought 250 million people out of poverty in 10 years, Sitharaman said that inflation had moderated and economic growth had picked up.
In the last 10 years.
In her interim budget speech, Finance Minister said that the next 5 years would see unprecedented economic growth in India. The government made no changes in taxation, and tax benefits for startups, investments made by sovereign wealth, pension funds were extended to March 2025.
Appreciate the taxpayers for their continued support. The government has reduced and rationalized tax rates. Under the new tax scheme, there is now no tax liability for taxpayers with income up to 7 lakh rupees, up from 2.2 lakh rupees in the financial year 2013-14.
Sitharaman announced that government will build 20 million affordable houses in the next 5 years. She mentioned that the government aims to make the country developed by 2047 and it will launch a new scheme to strengthen deep tech for defense purposes. In the budget speech, it was highlighted that island Lakshadweep will get undivided attention from the government to improve its tourist infrastructure.
Projects for port connectivity, tourism infrastructure, and amenities will be taken up on our islands, including Lakshadweep.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi praised the interim budget while calling it inclusive and innovative. He said that the budget focused on youth, women, farmers and the poor.
आज का ये बजट इंटरिम बजट तो है ही, लेकिन ये बजट इंक्लूसिव और इनोवेटिव बजट है. इस बजट में कंटिन्यूटी का कॉन्फिडेंस है. ये बजट विकसित भारत के 4 स्तंभ युवा, गरीब, महिला और किसान सभी को एम्पावर करेगा.
An interim budget is similar to a complete budget. The major difference is it only includes projections for a limited period of time rather than an entire financial year. The interim budget is presented by the outgoing government prior to the Lok Sabha polls in the budget session. The comprehensive budget is then presented by the new government after winning the elections.
Let's now move to Pakistan, where the former Prime Minister Imran Khan and his wife Bushra Bibi have been jailed for 14 years. The couple were convicted of illegally profiting from the state gifts. It was the second sentence handed to Imran Khan in 2 days. Earlier, he was sentenced to 10 years for leaking classified state documents. In their statements and video messages, several PTI leaders criticized the trials by courts, terming it a mockery of the law. Take a look. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan was sentenced to 14 years in jail in a corruption case on January 31st. Just a day after, he was given a 10-year sentence for leaking state secrets. Khan's wife, Bushra Bibi, was also handed a 14-year sentence in Toshakhana case, which accused them both of illegally selling state gifts. The judge also banned them both from holding political office for 10 years. Earlier, a Pakistan court sentenced Khan to 10 years in jail for leaking state secrets, the hardest sentence the popular former Prime Minister and cricket superstar has received and announced just days before a general election. The special court found cricketer turned politician guilty of making public the contents of a secret cable sent by Pakistan's ambassador in Washington to the government in Islamabad. Former Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was also sentenced to 10 years in the same case. Khan had earlier been sentenced to 3 years in jail in a corruption case in August, which ruled him out of the public spotlight ahead of the February 8 elections. Slamming the court's decision, Imran Khan's party said the court verdict on leaking state secrets had broken records of injustice.
आज साइपर केस का जो डिसीजन आया है उससे नाइंसाफियों के रिकॉर्ड टूटे हैं। एक बोगस केस जिसको इस तरीके से चलाया गया कि उसमें पहले दिन अरेस्ट गैर आईनी गैर कानूनी तरीके से हुई, उसमें चार्ज गैर आईनी गैर कानूनी तरीके से हुई, इसमें हाई कोर्ट के 3 ऑर्डर मुतवातिर वायलेट हुए, जिसको बंद दरवाज़ों के अंदर प्रोसीड किया गया।
In their statements and video messages, several PTI leaders criticized the trials by courts, terming it a mockery of the law. Meanwhile, PTI urged party supporters and candidates to remain calm as police detained supporters of the ex-Prime Minister outside Karachi's Sindh High Court, where they had arrived to seek pre-arrest bail. According to the authorities, the PTI workers were involved in a clash at Teen Talwar Monument in Karachi's Clifton.
एडवांस में मैं फिर भी अपने सारे फॉलोअर्स को, पीटीआई के वर्करों को, सपोर्टरों को, कैंडिडेट को, अपने वेलविशर्स को कह रहा हूँ कि तहम्मुल और बर्दाश्त और मुश्तइल ना होना, मायूस ना होना। आपका कप्तान स्ट्रांग है, इंशाल्लाह वो स्ट्रांग रहेंगे, वो नहीं टूटेंगे। हमने इलेक्शन हर सूरत करवाना है, मुखालिफिन को इलेक्शन से भागने का मौका नहीं देना है।
The fate of Imran Khan remains the central political question in Pakistan. The country's military kingmakers and oppositions are trying to keep Imran Khan out of power. As Pakistan approaches elections slated for February 8, Khan faces the biggest challenge of his political career. Khan was viewed as a fresh face among the more established political figures. The young voters who were fed up with the status quo were drawn to him as he pledged to rid politics of corruption. With the help of the influential military establishment, the public support and an anti-corruption manifesto, Khan was elected Prime Minister in 2018. The February 8 elections are unlikely to bring stability in Pakistan and reduce the political confrontations in the country. Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
Tokyo Metropolitan Government is spearheading decarbonization activity at Morigasaki Water Reclamation Center in Ota District, Tokyo. The latest solar power generation perovskite solar cell unit is set up as a demonstration experiment. Perovskite solar cell is a Japanese original technology, and about 30% of the world's production of iodine, the main material, is produced in Japan.
ペロブスカイト太陽電池なんですけれども、こちらはこれまでの従来型のシリコン太陽電池と比較しまして、非常に薄くて軽いという特徴を持っています。 さらに加えてですね、曲げることもできるような電池になっておりまして、様々な場所へ設置ができるといった、期待が持たれている次世代の太陽電池です。東京都は2030年までに再生可能エネルギーの利用割合を 50% 程度まで高めるということを目指しまして、様々な取り組みを行っております。多くの建物があるといった特色を生かして、この新しい技術、電池をですね、設置していくことができるだろうと。で、再生可能エネルギーのさらなる拡大につなげていけるといったところで非常に期待が大きいところでございます。
Moregasaki Water Reclamation Center is the facility to purify sewage water and then release it into a river or a sea in Tokyo. It is the biggest one out of 13 facilities in Tokyo. Its operation needs a lot of electricity. To supply electricity and make progress in decarbonization, Moregasaki Center installed many solar panels. Assuming future possibilities, Tokyo Metropolitan accepted setting up a perovskite solar cell unit. Tokyo Metropolitan Government aims to create a clean, comfortable and sustainable city. It is walking forward with a steady pace. Several members of the Maldives parliament traded kicks and fought with opposition lawmakers near the speaker's chair on January 28. Local media reported MP Abdullah Shahim Abdul Hakim was injured during a violent altercation between pro-government MPs and oppositions. The session descended into chaos when the main opposition Maldivian Democratic Party MDP decided to withhold parliamentary approval for some members of President Mohammad Muizzu's cabinet ahead of the key vote on the cabinet. Subsequently, pro-government MPs initiated a protest obstructing the parliamentary sitting from proceedings. Sushi is one of the famous dishes all over the world. At the beginning of the worldwide sushi boom, the treatment of raw fish was not necessarily perfect. To overcome this situation, Japanese sushi experts walked around the world to teach the correct treatment of raw fish, keeping traditional sushi cooking in check. A competition between international sushi chefs to inherit real sushi culture is called the World Sushi Cup. This year, 15 chefs from various regions and countries participated in the sushi competition. This competition was held to improve the skill of sushi chefs around the world and to promote sushi culture of Japan.
Including sushi, Japanese food has become United Nations heritage. Through the charm of sushi food, we would like to reinforce our friendship with various countries. Because when eating good food, everybody is happy and friendly.
This year, 15 finalists from 8 countries competed in the event. Judges marked points on each finalist's creative sushi. The World Sushi Cup evaluated normal sushi cooking while also decoratively creating sushi for each finalist. Creative sushi reflects each finalist's image and country's culture. In the long history of Sushi Cup, cacao tasting sushi was presented by a Belgian sushi chef. Sushi culture strengthens ties between Japan and Norway. The spread of Japanese sushi culture accelerated the export of Norwegian salmon. A Norwegian person was nominated as one of the judges. A Portuguese chef won the World Championship event this time. The history of the World Sushi Cup proves how the real global sushi boom elevates sushi skill and creates a fusion of countries' meal cultures.
Moving on. Impoverished Baluchistan is burning. Injustice and strong feeling of alienation have forced Baloch people to pick up arms, who are continuously targeting the Pakistani army personnel and Chinese assets in their region. Recently, at least 15 people were killed in an overnight attack in Baluchistan. The Baloch Liberation Army, the most prominent of several separatist groups in the region, claimed responsibility for the attack. A report.
At least 15 people killed in an overnight attack in Pakistan's southwestern Baluchistan province. According to the statement by the Pakistan military, the killed people included 2 civilians and 4 law enforcement agents. The Pakistan military's inter-services public relations said that the suicide bombers attacked Mach and Kolpur complexes in the southwestern province of Baluchistan. The Baloch Liberation Army, the most prominent of several separatist groups in Balochistan, claimed responsibility for the attack. The group aims to achieve independence for mountainous and mineral-rich Balochistan.
The Baloch Liberation Army have launched this attack operation, I would say, Darrai Bolan on 29th of January 2024, and it was ended on the evening of 31st of January 2024. So that operation lasted for over 2 days, and the Baloch Liberation Army claimed it has killed over 60 military personnel. It has targeting many military and governmental installation in that area. BLA has captured over 70 kilometer long area where footages shows that the freedom fighters of Baloch Liberation Army are walking on the streets of Mach, and this was a historical attack by any Baloch militant organization in the history of Baloch resistance movement against Pakistan.
According to the reports, Pakistani security forces killed over 20 people linked to the separatist group after the overnight attack. Injustice and strong feeling of alienation have forced some Baloch people to pick up arms, who are continuously targeting the Pakistani army personnel and Chinese assets in their region. In the Pakistan's most underdeveloped area of Balochistan, the country's intelligence agency, Inter-Services Intelligence, has been accused of committing all kinds of atrocities, including abduction, killing and torture to instill fear. Baloch activists are signing a petition urging the international authorities to take action on the ongoing genocide of their community members. They are demanding the United Nations and human rights organizations to take action and hold the authorities accountable for the crimes committed in Balochistan. Activists want fact-finding mission headed by the United Nations Working Group to investigate the matter. Pakistan recently witnessed a long march organized by the Baloch Yakjehti Committee against the extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances of Baloch people.
The current protest, which started on 23rd of November 2023 and ended at the last week of January in Islamabad, the protest itself is still continued, but the long sit-in in Islamabad after a month ended. That was according to the Baloch Yakjehti Committee, according to the people of Balochistan, according to the families of Baloch missing persons, was a successful protest, was a successful movement, was a successful representation of the issues which they are facing. It was a successful presentation of the issues of the Baloch missing persons, of the enforced disappearances.
In Pakistan, the state institutions such as Supreme Court have been unable to convince security forces to respect the law. Future of Pakistan appears bleak with multi-dimensional wave of insurgency in Balochistan.
Sri Lanka faced a significant protest recently, with demonstrators criticizing the current government for the hardships. Protesters voiced grievances about increased taxes, elevated utility prices, and a surge in living expenses. Sri Lanka's police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse an opposition protest in the island nation facing its worst economic crisis while gearing up for a national election later this year. A report. On January 30th, Sri Lanka's police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse the protesters who were opposing the steep tax increase and economic crisis in Sri Lanka. An estimated 10,000 protesters joined the demonstration called by the main opposition United People's Power Party. Sri Lanka's opposition leader Sajid Premadasa joined the protesters and blasted the government for imposing the most inhuman pressure on the people and pushing 22 million people into starving. Earlier, at least 2 courts had prohibited protesters from marching along roads leading to vital buildings including the President's office, Finance Ministry and the Central Bank. Instead, 2 areas in the capital were assigned for the protest.
මේ රටේ ජනතාවට එල්ල කරන්න පුළුවන් අමානුෂීයම පීඩනය එල්ල කරලා මේ රටේ ලක්ෂ 220ක් හාමතේ තවන කුසගින්නේ තවන පිපාසයේ තවන දුප්පත්කමට ඇද දමපු නීච නින්දිත තුච්ච ආණ්ඩුවක් අපි කියනවා Ranil Rajapaksa ආණ්ඩුවට අපි බය නැහැ.
Sri Lanka is struggling to recover from the unprecedented economic crisis that hit the nation in 2022. The crisis, which was started due to several compounding factors, left a large population of Sri Lanka multidimensionally vulnerable. In November last year, Sri Lanka's Supreme Court ruled on the country's worst economic crisis since independence. The court ruled that former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his brother, former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, and several other government officials were guilty of mishandling the economy. The top court held that the respondents violated the public trust and fundamental rights of the petitioners. The common people in the island nation had called the court's ruling a right decision, but they had expressed their desire to see more actions against the culprits.
අධිකරණයෙන් දීපු තීන්දුව මහ ජනතාව පැත්තෙන් හරිම තීන්දුවක් දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඇත්තටම හැබැයි මේක තීන්දුව දීලා තියෙන්නේ මේගොල්ලන් මේ වරද කරා කියන එකනේ. හැබැයි මහ ජනතාව බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ ඒක විතරක් නෙවෙයි. මහ ජනතාව බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේ ආර්ථිකයේ වට්ටපු මිනිස්සුකින් මේක ආයිපාරක් ඒගොල්ලන්ට දනුවම් දීලා හරි කමන්නේ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ළඟ තියෙන සල්ලි වලින් හරි කමන්නේ මේ කරපු වරද නිවැරදි කරලා දෙන්න ඕනේ.
Sri Lanka faces huge challenges to achieve economic stability in 2024. At the start of the year, the island nation raised its value-added tax to 18% from 15% to meet revenue targets under the 4-year $2.9 billion IMF program. That could spark a renewed rise in Sri Lanka's key inflation rate, which had eased to 4% at the end of 2023 from a high of 70% in September 2022. 2024 will be a critical year for Sri Lanka as it faces a challenging path towards a full economic recovery. And with that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.
People have to live in unity.
We are still in transition.
Civil society has been decimated.
Of course, we rely on media.
And I think the government has not done enough.
The international community has failed to respond.
No place in the world is perfect.